Hi, Decoders. This week we're going to explore other realms and dimensions. What can we decode about those universal beings in that universal badass field of all that is? Let's begin. Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup. Hi, Cam. Hi, Leela.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, I've got my bum wiggle, which means I'm happy to be here.
Aww.
I always love hearing Kieran's perspective on everything. But there's just an endless list of things I want to hear Kieran's perspective on. But I think this is one all of you will enjoy as well because it's kind of juicy. So we're talking about aliens and starseeds and other realms.
And you know, I've never been really interested in these things. But last summer, I had a visitor. I had an alien on my deck. And to me, that was a moment of like, what the actual fuck? And it really spooked me. So yeah, I'm happy to decode this shit.
Oh, I'm looking forward to hearing about the alien on your deck. That's exciting. You know, guys, we've talked about this before. We had this little episode on super spiritual identities, kind of that low-hanging fruit that captivates you with the magical mysticism, the what is sacred or what is titillating. I think sometimes it's really similar to the way that people like horror shows. Like they like this thrill up the spine. They like the jolt of sensation that's not like a usual sensation. And I'm not trying to denote any of this aliens or starseeds or other dimensions or anything. But also, it's still just a mirror. And I use that term a lot. Decoders, you hear me say it all the time. Like the forms and the way that things are showing up in your life are mirrors. And the thing that's making the mirror is this one vast field of energy. So if you don't sense into that, if you don't have that sort of one infinite field and you're just so camped out in separation, like me, I'm over here, we're these people, they're their people, like everybody, all form is different, it's easy to get really caught up in these mystical other dimensions and other realms.
And it really reminds me of what we said in that episode Kiran mentioned about the supernatural shit. Superpowers, these siddhis, as the great ancient yogi Patanjali calls them. It's like if you stop there with your, I don't know, clear vision or whatever, you're missing the point. You're not going all the way. And it's similar here. Like, don't stop with the alien. Don't stop with the otherworldly beings. Keep going to the source field.
Yeah, and any kind of encounter can feel like a really big deal. Like you have to decode its meaning. Why was it here? Why me? Am I special? So yeah, that's just that little kind of like warning flag, like
Yeah, it really does. It's hard to not get trapped there. Like we have this collective human story. It's an old story, but the story goes like this. Like the huge global collective is like, if you can't see it, then it's not real. Now, obviously, this is refuted constantly and consistently. There's so many states of human experience that you can't actually see. Love, jealousy. They don't have a form. But subtle forms of reality, these other dimensions, these other realities, or off planet beings, they somehow have this mystical woo-woo because it does actually require sensitivity to recognize it. And then it isn't the larger collective who are going to like agree with you that it's there. So it leaves a residue of like, this is uncommon. You know, like we're all out, like many people were out watching the night sky in Utah. Why did only 5 people see the UFO, right? Like it feels uncommon versus everybody in Utah. But in truth, sometimes, you know, people who are very, very sensitive have belief systems like I don't really belong. You know, like it wasn't my choice to be on this planet. I'm on the wrong planet. And like we can sometimes be really crippled by those belief systems. And then life kind of offers us all kinds of opportunities. Like life makes these mirror shapes for us and sort of brings in these other dimensions. And we can take our belief system of I don't belong and we can flip that into its like I don't belong feels like, you know, being left out or less than. And so we can flip it to be like, I'm so special, you know, like I'm so cool because I can make contact with these other dimensions, or I'm a starseed or whatever it is.
I feel like that describes so many people in Bristol. It's like we're not that far away from Glastonbury, the sort of mystical town where, I don't know, Avalon and Merlin and whatnot, and they lovingly call it an open air asylum. So you often get these like just people walking around in like velvet robes and they're fully checked out. But yeah, it's definitely like a la. And it's not like participating in society. It's sort of remaining in the outskirts. So it feels like very, very limited and probably quite painful.
I mean, as I hear you talk, I have to say I'm guilty as charged. Not that I was super into aliens or otherworldly beings, but just
that you have a lot of velvet.
Yeah, and just as like, oh, I'm maybe too sensitive for this world.
Yeah, too sensitive.
Like, yeah, there was a moment where, you know, when all this sensitivity sort of opened, or I don't know, all the filters dropped, and it's a lot to sense. And it was so new and not integrated yet. And so getting used to it, it was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I have to do something here. It must mean something. And often I would just retreat to my flat in Zurich and just camp out there, or sometimes here now in Ticino in the south of Switzerland, just this, yeah, not fully showing up for life or for connection and work. And it was this sense of I have to protect my energy. And now I can see that was all not safe, looking for safety. Like, I don't know, all the funny sprays, I still use them, but now for fun, that I used, or the crystals I carried around, you know, to protect myself from the electromagnetic, what is it called? Stuff.
Yeah, the fields, all the smudging of bad energies.
All the smudging, like so afraid of any quote unquote unclear energy, anything that felt yucky was like, oh my God, I'm threatened in my existence. And now, luckily, a lot of that has dropped or has cleared, that not safe belief system. And recently I was teaching a workshop where there was a woman who innocently and unbeknownst to her brought in an entity that almost made me faint while teaching. But, you know, the whole time I was like, it's fine. I'm safe. It's not going to make me, you know, it's not threatening me at all. And eventually I landed in the same sensation, in the same insight with this alien dude as well that showed up on my balcony.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to tell us about that alien?
I sure do. So one night I woke up and it was a summer night, so it was pretty light out, and I saw these the shape of an alien just through my curtains in the bed. And I was like, oh shit, what is this? I was so scared. And I tried to use this age-old strategy of like, I'm just going to close my eyes, because if I don't see it, it doesn't see me. like a child, right? And I sort of pretended to go back to sleep so it would go away and not be too interested. But then I woke up a second time. It was still there and still looking in. Like, okay, shit. Somehow I think I still fell back asleep. And the next morning I was on the phone with Kiran. So Kiran helped me pierce through to what's actually true, that this alien is also just source. It's not some different energy. It's the same source energy as everything else is as well. And these things just exist, and it's safe to notice their presence. It's safe that it was there. But there's also something about like, hey, you're not welcome here. Like, you don't have to be on my balcony and look at me while I sleep. It's kind of creepy. So this is not your place. And so they never came back. And, you know, funny enough is this was happening during a period where I was just confronted or looking at this fear of the night, like an ancient fear of the night, this I'm not safe when it's dark outside. And I was so afraid of spiritual beings. I never saw that before. So when we were watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, this cartoon series on Netflix, I couldn't watch it because there were these spiritual beings, otherworldly creatures, and I was too afraid. And I remember like hearing, I don't know, foxes through the night, and it was terrifying. So I was in this period of clearing through all this night fear, and then the alien showed up.
Bam.
So thank you, life. It was just perfect to pierce that bit that was unseen before. And then, you know, on the other side of that summer of night fears is what it was. Like once through that cycle, I was sleeping outside, like without a tent, just outside on the roof of a little hut. And I mean, I still can't believe that was possible. And, you know, there were wild boars out there. I heard all the other animals, but I felt so safe. And I slept so well. So that was sort of a full circle moment there.
You know, I love hearing that. Obviously, at the time I heard the alien story, but I can't hear it enough. I think it's so great because I love the full circle of clearing that layer. You know, it's all still source. Source is going to make these shapes to help you pierce your stuff. Like, that's what it is all about here. That's what the mirror is. So I just love the story. There was so many reasons to pierce that story, and then the freedom of camping out with that. Kim, I think you've got you've got an alien story or something too.
Yeah, I don't know that mine was like a full entity there, but I had an experience, so I might as well share it. I was in New York with a friend, and we just finished doing a workshop with someone called Mama Gina, who's super into like empowering women and coming back into the feminine. And the upshot of that was just like bucket loads of shame were being released from my system. And we were just hanging out after one of the workshop days in our Airbnb with my friend. And I had my eyes closed, and suddenly I just started telling her like this telenovela, but it was like stuff I was seeing. So I was like, hey, there's aliens camped out in my heart. And they're coming out of an airstream. And they're like somehow related to shame. And they're telling me that this lifetime for me is about releasing shame. And somehow, because something's been released, they're like, cool. We're like, you're not resonating at that frequency anymore. So we're just gonna go.
They drove the airstream off to the next campground that was full of more shame.
And I have never, prior to that, had any kind of experience like that. So I was like, oh my God. And then I remember sharing it with Kiran shortly after. I'm like, oh my God, my weekend, this happened. And we were in the middle of our group practice, and, you know, Kiran listened and she was like, cool. So anyway, moving on with today's class. So I think it definitely didn't feed that story of special, which I probably would have clung on to a little bit.
Because it's related to shame, you know, like ironically, isn't it? Special being. It's the flip side of it. And you guys are both talking about this. It's so cool, right? It's proving that the world of material form, you know, like our perceived world, it's more elastic than we can often give it credit for. It's, as I keep saying, it's this mirror of source energy versus that really stable, concrete story we have. Like, this is known, like, you know, this is my house and it always has these four walls and this, you know, like, or this is my life, or this is my body, or this is my name, or this is my family. But you know, that story is constantly refuted. You can listen. I mean, there's just so many, you know, podcasts. Let's start podcasts, books, media, TV shows. Just listen to Buddha at the Gas Pump. There are so many experts, like genuine experts, and they talk to the angelic realms. They talk to universal intelligence, channelers, starseeds, leprechauns, fairies, you know, Findhorn, which is a kind of a spiritual center in Scotland, has a really incredible garden. It's a tropical garden in the rocky northern Scottish environment. And it was built because the master gardener had a relationship with the fairies that were there. And she's written many books about it. And one of our students mentored with her. And, you know, learn to talk to the garden entities to help them, you know, create garden environments that wouldn't be the native, you know, space. You know, and personally, I've worked with actual star seeds. It's so cute. It's always like, you know, these adults who are like brand new. The fact that they're brand new here is just sort of like obvious, you know, like there's a bizarre fascination with normal human things that we wouldn't be fascinated with. And there's a bizarre fascination with the earth that normally we wouldn't. It's hard to put words on when you meet that kind of like, you're clearly here for the first time. You know, it's hard. It's too vague, and, you know, anybody can really play with that. Like, ironically, I've met a lot of people who identify as starseeds, even though they are not starseeds. Rather, they're people who are crippled by, I don't belong. You know, this isn't, I don't want to be here. This isn't my planet. I hate what's going on. The vast majority of people claiming to be starseeds, what I'm actually looking at is crippled by their own stories. But, you know, there's millions of near-death experiences. We've talked about, you know, numerous ones here. It confirms again and again and again, like, there's other realms. There's these angelic realms, there's dark realms, there's heaven realms. That's different. You know, in reality, if you can imagine it, it exists already. Because it all comes from source. Source is this one infinite field. And so this is another way to say that, like, source, like we call it source because it's the source of all that is, all that is. Now that's a lot for humans. It's a very big step. It's easier to discount parts of that story than to stay open to it all. You know, even the Pentagon and Congress have acknowledged that aliens have visited Earth numerous times. And so humans tend to, you know, be a little surface when Cam and Leela, you're talking about your stories of an alien encounter. You have the depth to notice the whole belief system that Source was kind of mirroring for you. Not a lot of people do have that depth, right? They seeing these separate events and not making a correlation to their personal evolution. Mm-hmm. But as humans, what we're basically saying is that you don't have to bring your fear, our fear, even though it's the main operating system for most of us, fear of the unknown. We don't have to bring that to filter every, instance. We all have karma, which are these belief systems that have this history. It's many, many lifetimes with this history, like Leela's saying, like not safe. And, the unraveling of these layers and layers, like Leela's talking about, all that accumulated baggage that actually she didn't even know she had these night fears. It sort of suddenly popped up when she was unraveling a layer. She found this extra baggage with an old history. And life, then life throws up a mirror with opportunities to pierce that story. And then life is going to use all that it needs to do that. Life will use all that is, to throw up a reflection and give you an opportunity to drop that habitual story.
Yeah, and in the last summer, life provided this alien to pierce through the story, to pierce through this ancient fear of supernatural beings. And life also provided this outside night, the night outside. So sometimes life is very gentle with what it provides. And sometimes it's not so gentle. It's pretty gruely.
Gruely. Like even you guys can watch yourself bring your baggage. Like even decoders, while you're listening to this, you can watch your own blank out or your own, storyline. You can identify with this, and it can be hard to notice when we agree with our own not safe. Like obviously, Kiran, the world isn't safe. Dangerous things happen. And the thing that I would say to that is like, that's a surface vision that doesn't see any depth. It can't see the wholeness there. Up on the surface, it just appears like these really separate illusions. Like I'm me and over there's an alien, and it discounts that we're both source, and source is highlighting a moment here. So without depth, it can appear very true that something isn't safe. But deeper down, you can notice there's an illusion here of not safe. It's an illusion. And so can you question the story of not safe? Can you notice how ingrained you are with the assumption instead of pulling out and looking really directly of how something could actually be safe? Like Leela in her bed was safe. She was safe all night long. And honestly, when you go to look for proof of safety, like you're going to find a ton of it. Like pretty much every time in your life that you thought you weren't safe, you were actually safe. Yeah. Like that. But you got to go down. You got to go down deep, and you got to let go of some of your stuff.
Some of your stuff.
So we both described instances where maybe the sort of extraterrestrials showed up as unwanted visitors. But would there be any instances when maybe they're friendly and they want to help you out?
If you're talking to me, which obviously you're talking to me, like this is not a general answer. This is Kiran's answer. I say no, it's not really advisable. I'm aware there's many, many, many teachers who channel angelic realms or devas, various gods, various goddesses. And And, you can use methodologies and channel those beings. But the question for me is, where is that going to get you? Where's it going to get you? What's the point? Because another being cannot be source for you. There are, plenty of realms that claim to be. I mean, the angelic realms, that's their fucking core sales line is, we are God. We are the voice of God. It's not. It's not. There's only one source, and only source is where you find true clarity, true abundance, true love, true awareness, any real intelligence. Like, it has to come from this field. It cannot come from a filter, from another realm. And so, what's the point of the filter? I think of it, this is my opinion, it represents a long time ago when humanity was so dark, like Middle Ages, like really, really dark polarities, right? So we have this deep ingrained story that we keep standing on about hell. So then we need, we need the angels, right? We need the light. A demon is hell, an angel is light, these huge swings, these huge polarities. And sitting in the middle of that is this, I'm a worthless feudal peasant, or I'm, or I'm the king, which is like total worthlessness. Like, I'm so separate, I'm so special, and so, I don't think that modern current humanity is so polar. We don't need these intense polarities. We don't have to play that game. We're not required to use the intelligence of a universal being to remind ourselves that we can be free, that we can heal, that we can just look to source. And I'm not throwing shade to Esther Hicks or the Abrahams, no shade to Seth or Jane Roberts, but I personally say we don't need to continue the story. There's enough of us with enough consciousness that we can just look to the sun. We literally, on planet Earth, modern humanity doesn't have these swings. We don't need these swings. You don't have to agree with these polarities. So, back in Jesus's day, like, sure, he's the only dude. There's maybe him and 5 dozen others who have an awaked level of consciousness. And today it's millions. It's millions. I mean, there was like 30 million people who watched The Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle. Like, even if 1% of them, but there's millions. We don't have to agree with these old polarities, these old systems. We can do our own healing. We can do our own energy healing. We can do our own emotional healing. We can do our own psychic healing. I just don't think we ever need an intermediary.
Oh, that was good. It feels like syringe, like in the bloodstream. But yeah, it's safe to be you, safe to be autonomous. You're enough. You don't need added fuel or power because you're it. You're everything. So no need for any extra spicy toppings. You're enough.
I kind of want to add that, if you need to go to an intermediary, it's going to cost. If you need, like, for anything, and I don't think that the various other realms have transparent pricing. And so just know that too, like if you're going to pay, like, if you're sitting in a lot of dark and you need light, right? The cost is going to be around the amount of polarity you're calling in, and that's may not be obvious to you. Like, we have these stories like, oh, they're all out here to help and la, 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 la. help what? We're all source. You know what I mean? What are you talking about, these agendas, you know? And so it's like, if I have coal and I want diamonds, it's going to cost me the energy, focus, and time it takes for coal to get to diamond. That's what it's going to cost me to get, you know? If I've got dark and I want to get to light, there's a whole grind in there. And is that the price I want to pay, when in fact I could turn this to diamond myself? You know, like, that capacity is there. And I just want to sort of like say, modern humans, like, drop the ancient polarities. Like, it's no longer required. We don't have to engage this way. And the more we don't, the more of us can just look to the sun. You know, like, just that freedom is inbound. You know, like, that it's an inborn part of who and what you are. I can feel folks might want to come at me about that. There's a lot of, you
Probably.
know, intermediary business out there, but you know, I said what I said.
And I kind of hear you that you don't need to outsource what's your birthright, what's yours. And I remember I had a very pivotal moment when I kind of realized, oh, it's just me. Because I used to have a very close relationship with Muji and the Muji Sangha. I spent years videoing his satsangs, spending time in Portugal. It was an absolutely beautiful atmosphere of soaking in presence and getting very high on bhajans. But this kind of subtle / not so subtle story that, you know, he's a guru and we're honored to be in his presence. And I even had this whole experience where he appeared, like, his face appeared to me on the mountain, and I'm like, oh my God, it's the teacher I've been searching for all these years. And so there was just a lot of the kind of old school model of spirituality, I guess you could say. And at the time it was hugely helpful. I mean, it just helped me touch source, and back then, it was the only avenue I knew. And then later down the line, I started working with Kiran, and I attended another retreat with somebody called Jim Eaton, who's just like a bloke. You know, he's like a British dude who lives a couple of hours from me, and he shows up in, just a t-shirt and jeans. And that was the retreat. Like, it was in a lovely sort of villa in Malaga, but that was the extent of the kind of specialness around it. And I remember talking to Kiran about it and saying, like, it feels like it's the first time I've realized that I don't need all the other stuff, like, I don't need a guru, like, it's just source. And she was like, yeah, you don't need a dais. And yeah, what that exposed was this fear that I'm not enough. Like, I need something special. I need someone. And I think that was one of the first times I realized this journey is just about me. Like, me as in everything. You are it. So it doesn't need to be dressed up in frills or anything extra. And it's still a revelation every day when it's just a little old me. I showed up cranky and sweaty today. And that's it. That's enough. Like, that's it. That's what you're working with. And it's a joy. It's the juice. And I think when I first realized that was when my journey kind of shifted from being spiritual to just, holy shit, life itself.
Yeah, what you're saying is so awesome. It's about not having such a separation between the sacred and the ordinary of every day. That there isn't this big hard line of separation between the two, in a way that, like, we have to clean ourselves and wash our hands before we pray to God, or that we have to, like, shift somehow in order to, ask for blessings and supports. You know, like all this is very old paradigm that I am very involved in encouraging the end of. And sidebar, no shade to Muji. We all love him very, very much. Ironically, it's kind of the community that needed that dais for him. And, you know, he chose and agreed to step up on it. There's that separation, but do we need it?
Nah.
Nah.
Nah. I mean, there's stuff out there, you know, aliens, starseeds, I don't know, things we don't have words for, but it's not a big deal because you're enough.
Yeah, if you want to enjoy it, go for it. Just know, like, it's underlining separation. It's putting in an intermediary. There's going to be a cost. Or don't enjoy it. Regardless, keep going. Get to the point, because that's when it really gets good.
That's said by an elf as well. No zigzagging, just get to the point.
I like this. You're enough. Like, it reminds me of an energy healer I like to work with a lot. And she always says, everything's already here. We don't have to add. We don't have to subtract. You're complete. Like, it's here. Your source. That's it. Like, we don't have to repeat the same old games that we've been playing since the beginning of time, probably. We don't have to keep repeating the old agreements. It's so valuable to see that, oh yeah, there's sort of there's almost like a moment of choice there. I don't need to keep going that way. I can keep going towards the source field. I can keep going, you know, and just be with God. I don't have to repeat, you know, my old religious programming where it's just a priest who has access to God. I mean, I'm a reformed. I'm almost a pastor, but didn't quite go there. And there, it's a very strong emphasis on we all have equal access to God. And I'm not even that interested in the Reformed Church at all. But just this point of everybody has equal access, everybody has equal capacity to access God is so, it's so refreshing. And if we keep playing priest and God and versus the peasants, it's just this other story, another version of us versus them. And that's, Cam was saying in a call with me today, it's just a very lifeless place to be. So there's so much more aliveness in truth. And there's many books and films and stuff about, you know, the things we talked about here. And I think before we sign off for this week, it might be worth, you know, illuminating us, Kiran, a little bit about what's actually worth our time to read, or what authors are reporting the real stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's a rich terrain of books and movies and stuff. And wherever you're called to go, have a look. And then we would always tag it of like, and double check what belief system you is interested. Is it very open-handed, or is it a little grippy? You know, there's some cool authors out there. I always go towards these female writers. I tend to like that. I'm a woman. Joan DiMaggio is got some great stuff. Taylor Caldwell. These are women who write these historical fictions in great detail. So it's like a timeline. It's like, you know, the like Napoleonic, you know, period of history in very beautiful detail, because actually what they were writing is their past lives that they were remembering in great detail. And they a lot of them have these like clairsentient abilities to, you know, visit other realms, and also, you know, in earlier lifetimes, you know, visit with aliens and visit with, you know, universal channeling energy. You know, one author I really like is Joan Grant, and she wrote her own memoir, And she very brilliantly articulated, talking about like seeing subtle energy beings, the ghosts, various things in her own journeys of being not localized in her own body and localized in other places. And really she writes very clearly about even being like 3 years old, 4 years old. And she would witness other people's, lifelines and other things. There's a story in the book, in her memoir, Near Local Memory or something like that. She witnesses a man being killed in the subway. I think she's about 5 years old. And she writes really articulately, like so crystal clear, watching his soul descending up to the heaven realm. And then past lives that just sort of shed off and descend off of him. And then he has and then he telekinetically talks to her as he's dying, and he's asking her, this little 5-year-old girl, to find his daughter, to tell him that she died. This is taking place in like 18th century, late 18th century. Anyways, it's just so articulate. It's so clearly true. And actually, I would say terribly unfortunate for her. What an incredible burden. In one of the books, she writes about a twin flame. Both of you guys, many of you decoders have heard about me and Leela. We think it's the worst burden that you could ever have. And certainly it's rough for her. But he ends up dying quite quickly from an accident, and he gets reincarnated into another planet, where at night in dream space, he takes her to this other planet. So she gets to visit life on alternative planets. And again, it's so articulate, it's so clear. Do with it what you may, but I think it's absolutely a true reporting. And, because if you sit in my seat, you hear it a lot. You hear it a lot. And, ultimately, I think it's very burdensome holding on to so many people's karma, being involved with various intermediaries. It just feels, you just get burdened by story and so easy to get stuck and miss the point. And for, I think all of these people, Joan Taylor, Joan Grant, I'm missing the main one. There's a really big gal I'm not thinking about right now. Most of you guys will have heard of her. They all missed the point. They all didn't get that juicy, delicious homeland for themselves, landing home to Sourcefield.
Cool. So I'll probably have one of those books by my bedside soon. Hopefully I won't get too spooked. And before we sign off, we just want to let you know that on the 29th of May, which is a week from today, if you're listening to us on Thursday, it's the absolute final deadline to sign up for a retreat. So if you missed the early bird, it's not too late to join us. Just make sure you do it before the 29th of May.
Okay, and that's all from us. To you, decoders, we'll meet you back here. Same time, same place.
And hopefully play with you on retreat.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kirantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.